introspection, spirituality, and happiness. Thank you so much for joining me here for episode number 40, first podcast of the new year, 2024. And also, I'm going to be kicking off a new concept, running parallel to blogs that I'm putting up, and that I plan to continue to put up throughout the year, here and there, as the subjects arise, because this concept that I want to bring to the forefront is very, very complex and also not for everyone. I understand not all listeners and my viewers might be interested in this topic, and so I will be kind of touch and go off and on, bringing it up in partnership with other topics, and keeping on with the other the courses and things that I'm doing on YouTube with the energy systems and such. I want to be able to use this podcast platform to offer this section of talking, discussions, I don't know, in case anyone is interested. And so with that little preamble, let's jump right into what I am planning to talk about, and that is parenting through the apocalypse. I know it's kind of a catchphrase, it's kind of dramatic, it sounds really mainstreamish, but I feel like 2024 is this year that it's actually called for now, to put it in the forefront and to try to talk in plain language about what's happening, what's already occurred, the sort of widening, ever-expanding gap between the worlds that's happening, and how we as parents, like myself, and probably many of us out there are, how we're coping with that, how we've been teaching through doing and through real-life experience with our children over these past 4 years now. And if you are questioning what I mean by apocalypse, perhaps you could be on the other side of the fence here and not really fully awake to exactly where in the plot line we're at globally. But most of us, I feel, especially if you have clicked play and you've seen the title, you're here because you understand the apocalyptic happenings of the world as of late. But just for reference point and for all of us to sort of open up our eyes to the many variations of the definition of apocalypse, here I really am going to draw a lot of parallels and speak about the sort of end of times, fall of the empire, kind of collapse of society aspect that the word and term apocalypse means. A lot of us, the forefront image is like a burning city or absolute chaos in the streets, anarchy, that word. I hate to even use that word in conjunction because I feel like that's also another hype term that it's really has a forced perspective and a forced description for us to use that isn't exactly clear to the whole picture. It's not very fair to the whole term. But yes, this apocalyptic visualization of the end of days is, yeah, we are facing that. And again, this sort of has little weight, but also has great gravity. You know, everything needs to be looked at and thought about in great balance here. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater straight away or jump to any conclusions. As we look at these phrases and draw parallels and comparisons, right? Let's remind ourselves the work that we're doing here and to try our hardest to look at things unbiasedly. So there's, you know, every age, every stage of civilization and humanity and history has this sort of cyclic patterns where we see rises and falls of empires, of societies, of trends, right? Traditions and routines, social life and etiquettes, acceptable behaviors and taboos, you know, and these things bounce back and forth in a cyclic fashion, as does the population of the planet, these sort of semi-cyclic events that happen with a population control aspect to them, right? And whether you look at that in an organic way, like we could see modeled in nature with certain species of different animals, and how the circle of life in combination with seasons and natural occurrences keep populations in check in a very beautiful way. Or, you know, if you see things in a little bit more of an orchestrated, karmatic repercussion, religion, dogmatic way, to where humanity or man's or society's head gets too big for itself, you know, the Tower of Babylon kind of aspect. You get too much ego, too much of too much, building too high, and then it causes a fall, and a reckoning comes, you know. All of those things are concepts of the apocalyptic times. And every age and generation has had the doomsday person with the sign, the end is near, standing out in the center of town, you know, quoting out prophetic time, end time phrases. And so I really don't want to get too wrapped up in those things either. However, I feel it's foolish and stupid, in fact, to ignore the parallels and the sort of notifications that are really dinging around, lighting up the scene, setting the stage, so to speak, you know, that perhaps a lot of these revelations type of time event, tribulations and all of that, could actually be a great guideline and markers. Whether you want to stake a ground on that being real or not, they could be valuable logical markers to still set your ethics and morality by. And also the timeline of our planet and humanity and society. And so, I mean, it's valuable to understand and to look at that and to know, hey, maybe it is. The end is coming. Or maybe some revelation is coming. Perhaps we will face tribulation-like tasks and systems that put in place these unbelievable, ungodly, inorganic restrictions on human life and the pursuit of happiness. And that maybe we should question those and not consent to them. Perhaps we need to stand for our boundaries as to what we feel is right and wrong. And nowadays, over these last years, you know, these last 4 years, we have seen real 3D manifestations of these actual markers in the timelines, right? We have plenty of the entire kind of slice of the pie of doomsday preppers and the Christian, and actually just don't even want to pin it on completely on Christians, but you know, the more religious, dogmatic, end of days sort of revelations groupings of people who really get into that. And then we also have this other slice of the pie that's the more mainstream, quote-unquote, woke, climate change-esque aspect of the end of times, to where human beings and industry and everything that we have kind of created is forcing the hand of these sort of collapse, and the lack of resources, the lack of space, the lack of all these fresh air and clean water and all of these, all these regular concerns, kind of prepping for the end of the world phase scenarios, right? There's many flavors out there that have a lot of real world evidence, quote unquote, to prove its standpoint. And so, taking all that into account, I feel like that's a valuable data input to put on our set. Like I said, try to keep things in an unbiased way and just let it fall in the spectrum of information that we're gathering about this term apocalypse, right? Because when we look at more deeply what really apocalypse can mean and does, right, is the falling of the veil, the falling away of the lies, the revealing of truth, the revealing of what is hidden underneath, what has been behind the curtain. Because, yes, apocalyptic times are known for this sort of the crumbling and the falling apart of things. But it's important to remember that that's a symptomatic repercussion of what is the truth. And that is that too much has been piled on top of what's real. And it's time to get back to what's real. And that's where we get that sort of veil falling, the seeing behind the lies, the awakening, the enlightening, ascension, energy alchemy qualities of the apocalypse. And then it fits beautifully in that overall cyclic of periods of having these times, catalytic times that shake away and all of the debris, all of the extras and the add-ons, and bring us back and hearken us back to what is real and true. And so that is another sort of way that we are facing and enduring and looking at the term apocalypse, and also how we're parenting through it. Because a lot of us at this time, perhaps especially if we're listening to me right now, right, awakened parents, maybe even woke parents, but some of us can allow the awakening to angle into these fads of wokeness, to where we're not actually awakening to truth and to seeking truth for ourselves. What we're really doing is just, waking into a more lucid dream, to where we want to be led to more different information. We don't actually want to seek truth for ourselves yet, but we're just falling into a deeper layer of the dream life, to where we want new experiences, but we don't actually want to take on the full responsibility for them. The good and the bad qualities, and do the exercise works, do the sweat, blood, and tears, actions that come forth to actually build the wisdom, to actually awaken, to actually see the truth. We want to let that one layer of the blindfold fall and get accustomed to kind of the new amount of light that's come through, but yet we're still wearing, instead of wearing a burlap sack, maybe now we have like a see-through t-shirt material kind of covering our faces. We're letting in more light and truth, but only as we can handle it, right? And this is another thing why it's a process, and it's a weeding out, and it's a healing that has to happen gradually at each and every one of our own paces. And that's why as parents, through this process, we first learn and heal ourselves. Our children watch us doing the learning, healing work, and they learn how to learn with us, through us, by watching. We don't teach them how to heal this certain wound because this certain approach worked for our wound. And that means their wound is the same and must work the same way. It is not like that, and we shouldn't be teaching in that way. We've been really harnessed and forced into doing that, and tricked into thinking it makes sense. From a micromanager, ultra controlling sense, it almost does make, a sense. There's a common thread to follow, but it isn't based in a real truth. It isn't based in the freedom of conscious awareness to life, to the pursuit of happiness that each creation, especially your children, you want them to discover. You want them to feel, be exhilarated by their life, enjoy the moments of their lives each day, chasing their dreams, going after their callings, right? That's the true purpose of the parent, is to teach them how to hear those and give them the tools and skill set to chase after it. Not to follow behind them or shovel a way out or fence it off and put bumpers all along the way and a nice sign, here's the end, here's your dream job out there. It doesn't work like that. Did it work like that for you? And if it did, were you happy with that when you got it? These are the kind of things, as honest parents, during apocalyptic times, we have to ask ourselves. Because as you're waking to the fall of the around you, the crumbling of this empire, the crumbling of societies and traditions and old routines and ways, a conscious, awake parent will ask themselves, where's the solidity? Where's my foundation? Let me get the pillars and the firm foundation. Let me get back to that and get in that area and really build from there and let all the loose, bad pieces fall away. And make sure I don't get harmed in the collapse and my children don't, right? And it's through this, conscious awareness of the stages and the bigger picture and the apocalypse we're facing, right? That creates a different type of structuring in my parenting approach. I'm sure other parents are really feeling this too. And if you missed my blogs and you're interested in reading sort of the kickoff starter blog I did, where I sort of just kicked around ground about the topic, and also the first blog that I put out called First Things First, No Fear. And I started to talk a bit about how we can get into this sovereign space of no fear as individuals, as parents first, and how we learn that ground and that work for ourselves, and then teach our children. These two blogs really helped me to sort of solidify the fact that the starting ground really for all of this is always with the self, and all work is that way. But sometimes as parents, we have this forced vision that takes into account always our children and others before us. And we kind of get away from that inside inner voice, the quiet self, your own intuition, and your own time for yourself to hear and listen to you, the reality that is your world, that doesn't include others, right? So much of our forefront logical processing daily tasks, are oriented towards others, our children, their schedules, their needs, our husband or your wife or whatever your partnership, family sort of aspects are. You will have a focus on the others mostly, right? But during these times, the inner self is where all the keys lie and where all the answers are and where the truths are born from. And so we have to always bring it back there. We have to really be conscious of keeping a firm foot in this big picture kind of role as we parent, as we live. Because like I said before, and I will continue to go on and on about this, teach, learn, cycle, and the beautiful blessing and teachers that our children really are for us. And how we could get away from the forced view, this hierarchy pillar where the parent is up higher than the child and everything is sort of top down naturally. There is certain aspects where that does happen, But we should allow and leave space and always have the available assumption that sometimes the role is reversed. The children, your child, any of them, can have that sort of teacher role with you and be standing on that higher pillar where you're lower than. And it almost feels top down. Hierarchy as they're passing information, truths, knowledge, you know. And we struggle with that as parents, especially the way that traditions and rituals have been placed on us, to where seniority comes into play, and the respect, and just the whole idea of that you're a parent, you birthed these children, you've been here so much longer than them, you know better than them. And I'm not trying to say that we throw the baby out with the bathwater and start letting a toddler drive your car around town for you. With, you know, there's plenty of time, probably 85% of the time, where this more accepted view of having the parent be passing the higher up and passing down knowledge to the child. And that is the more comfortable flow of energy. And it is needed, and it is very important to have a guiding supportive structure to where the child feels a parent is a steady figure and a role model that has experience in the world, that's reliable and that can offer good advice, that can offer tangible replies and building tools and skills, you know. Children want to know they have good teachers to learn from, you know. They want to look up to people, and they should. And I'm not trying to take away from any of that, you know, and I'm saying that's maybe 85% of the role, but let's look at the other 15% for a little while and understand that, yeah, even though it's only 15% of the overall, it still plays 100% of its impact role to make up the whole. Just like every other bit of 85% of all the other times of the way that you're playing that role, they all play 100% of their own distinct role within the whole. So let's not belittle the 15% and go into it looking as if it's smaller than the rest. Let's give it adequate space to be just as large and important and as worthy of taking time and observing it and working with those things that take up this smaller portion. And the times that our children can be teachers to us, the times they can be partners on equal footing when we learn something new together. And then we take on their insights. We take on their individual perspective and say, oh, I didn't see it that way. Oh, how about I see it from this perspective? What do you think about that? And we give them the honorable space to have opinions and to present information and see it as valuable too. Valuable to the parent, valuable to the situation, the problem, the whatever it is, the book, whatever reference that you're looking at, reading, watching, and to acknowledge, you know, their input as worthy and as valuable. And to let them know when they surprise you. Let them know when you learn from them. You know, and to encourage them to do that more in kind, respectful ways, right? This is the other aspect that I'd really want to bring up here, that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing, about letting kids run the show. We cannot allow children to dictate everything, because the society, the scenarios, that the real world happenings in the external world don't allow for that. And we don't want to set up false expectations for children. You know, we don't want them to get too carried away with over-the-top expectations, just like we don't want them to get confined and weighed down by negative expectations. Balancing is everything, right? And more and more, as we learn positive feedback, positive exchanges of information and ideas, and stepping out of the pillared hierarchy of this forced authority with your children, with all children, think it'll really open up new communication, and we'll have different ways and approaches that will just bubble up organically, individually, with each child and each parent in each scenario. And the other layer I'll add to this is now, if you have multiple children, you'll really hear the depth and the variety, the variabilities here, because not only now does every scenario and each child have a different input that they could bring in, but each of your children are unique in their own ways. And so you can really learn and see and get a chance to observe the manyness of the Creator, of infinite intelligence, of God, when you allow your children and witness them for the, that conscious Creator entity that they really are, to see what they do with their energy, their power, their intentions, their imagination, their energy, right? What do they choose to do with it? There will be much different approaches when we get into this space. And I know just from practice in my own world, it has really evolved and helped me find deeper patience, more unconditional love and gratitude, and more amazement and appreciation and admiration for my sons, and for their unique abilities, capabilities, the unique role that they are here birthed into and playing. So hopefully parents who are listening will be exercising this and creating more space in their own world too. And perhaps you already do this on your own and are saying, wow, so it's so beautiful to hear that others do this, other parents hear that. And I have talked to many parents out there, and there's a variety of them, right? But I have as well heard these beautiful echoes of others who do this great work, who have heard truth and really found tapping into the concept of unconditional love and acceptance through their children, because it's such a great, almost like a barbell weight to wanting to get stronger arm muscles, your children, they're always there. It's very basic. It's just up and down with that one single barbell. You do as many reps as you can every single day. You come back and do one more than you did yesterday, each day. And before you know it, with some couple rest days and some stretching in between, right? Same thing with your kids, and they're the barbell. We don't go at the heavy lifting with our children all the time, right? We have some rest days. We have some laughter. We have some take it easy stuff. We have integration. We have arguments and fights and disruptions and times that, mistakes. We wish we approached that better. We wish we said this better. We should have let them speak. We should have listened more clearly. And all those things get incorporated in. But when we do this more honestly, and when we say each time we're going to do our best to put our best foot forward, to come at each day and situation with clear eyes and an open, caring heart, because we want what's best for our children, we want what's best for ourselves, then, it can make parenting through the apocalypse a time of unbelievable growth, accelerated ascension, rapid muscle gaining, where rapid results, all of a sudden you turn around and you say, wow, that was difficult, but I made it through, and I am 150% stronger because of that. And I'm very grateful to be bringing up this sort of concept, to be able to air out and talk about these parenting sort of hurdles and obstacles, the little hiccups, also the little funny things, and the kind of only at the fall of the empire, only in 2020 through 2024 will we be experiencing X, Y, and Z scenarios, having to say this to my children, having to warn them about this and that. All these things that I just didn't ever think I would have to incorporate into our lives, or have to stand for as a parent, or have to question, do I consent to that or not? Where is my boundary about this thing, and why? On so many aspects. Because as we know, and as I started off this podcast talking about, the apocalyptic times are all about overextension of boundaries, of when things have been stretched too far, what happens? And that effect of that overexertion. And whether it's a tumble and a crumble, or whether it's like an elastic band that's been stretched out and now it's flimsy and not resistant anymore, and it's just useless. All of these different things are happening in different ways, in different categories. And I am experiencing them in so many different ways. And I'm sure many other parents out there are as well. And others who aren't even parents. But for this podcast and these blogs that I'm going to come back through and touch on, like a running topic through the year, I really want my angle of focus and attention to be about parenting, about mothering, about, I will be speaking, mostly from a traditional viewpoint, because I have a husband, and we do have traditional values. But I also, as I've said numerous times, and I'll continue to say, leave space open for everyone to do what is comfortable for their reality. What feels right and true to them is all I feel everyone should do. And we should leave space open for everyone to do that. As long as it's not infringing on others and it doesn't have anything to do with the conquest of power over others in any sort of way, then, bygones be bygones and do your own thing. Parent in whatever way you see fit. And please allow me to do that as such. I feel like it's going to be really great to here and there come in and really dive into some of these things that we face, and I'm facing, and I'm seeing, and voice my struggles, and also voice out those great things that have happened, the successes, and these different skills and tools that we've been able to work on and exercise out, that wouldn't have been available to us, BC, before COVID. So much of life has changed now. That I see it as a whole new world out there. And I'm going to wrap my talk up here by just sort of reiterating and putting out there that it does feel like there's a big split in the world. And I notice this in my direct world. I even notice this with a lot of my family, extended family, and my more immediate families, other than my husband and my children. That there's a big split, whether you see what's happening and you will accept that there's some sort of apocalypse happening and you just want to meet it as best as you can and get through it. It is what it is. Let's meet the problems with good solutions and make it through. There's the camp of those type who just want to see things for what they are and do what is best for them, for their health and their wellness. And then there's this other camp and side that, for whatever reason, and many reasons, multiple and varied, they're choosing to hold up that burlap sack, that veil, and really cling to it. And to say, oh, it's still there. Oh, feel how scratchy it is. Oh, I can barely see through it. I can see every little fiber. It's so real. It's here, and the people who love that burlap sack over the face, they want to force it on everybody else too, and really try to hold it on to people. And many of us just have taken it, don't even want it on, and that was a real line drawn in the sand back in 2020. Some of us just said, hey, we will never put that itchy burlap sack right over our faces and tie it over our heads and pretend that that's keeping us safe. I'm not going to do that. And we never put it on. And there was this great gap drawn and they had their foot stuck in the door at this point. The man has his jackboot right in the door. And always, are you ready to put that sack on? The burlap sack's right here. It's on the doorknob. You're going to put it on? We'll leave it right here for you. Don't forget. Nope, you can't shut the door. It's still here, you know. And all of us have, those of us who've been parenting through the apocalypse, we've been trying to get the foot out of the door and close our front door to have a safe, regular home with privacy, with our right to our life and our private family, our traditions and beliefs, and to pursue our happiness, to be a part of society when we want to, and to disassociate when we choose to as well, to have our own comfort, our own private home that is away from influences of policies and political bureaucrats and nonsense that actually isn't even real, right? That's all made up, that is supposed to be the power of the people given to you, that doesn't give you any rights over anyone. You're supposed to be the voice of the people. So jackboot, I don't want you in my door. And the fact that you won't take your foot out shows me that you're a real threat, and that I'll keep my eye on that boot and do whatever I can. So we've been trying to close the door. Most of us, you know, still feel the presence of that jackboot. But we are telling our kids that boot is dangerous. As soon as we can, get that door shut, we're closing it. Don't go, don't open the door, don't let them in. Don't believe what they're saying about that burlap sack. We're not putting it on. It's itchy, you can't see through it. It's a lie, it's not real. Yeah, you know, there might be all these little strings attached to it. They might tell you that, oh, when you put it on, there's a screen in there and you're in a virtual reality. Oh my goodness, right? In this metaphor, but seriously, there's real parallels in there, obviously. Those of us who've been parenting through this whole thing have been making our children conscious of these threats the whole time. However, there were some who were not aware, who fell for the trick and put that burlap sack on. Some people noticed straight away it wasn't for them. It was itchy, it was bad. When their kids complained, when they realized it wasn't good, some problems were patching up or something, they couldn't see, they can't, whatever the case is. They took it off. They learned their lesson, you know? And slowly over all of these other things, some people have been learning that burlap sack needs to come off in different ways and taking it off. And some put it back on, some, you know. Other people have just opened the door wide open. There's no jackboot in their door, really. They have the door wide open. They have the sack on. They are following completely. And for whatever reasons that the screens and the authority figures tell them, top-down authority, they will just believe that, and they will just go along and say, oh no, it's not a burlap sack over my head. I can breathe fine and see fine. This is keeping me safe and whatever. And they'll repeat safe and effective, safe and effective. You're a threat. You're doing this. You don't have yours on in your house, so you are a threat to my well-being because the whole thing is that you know it's a lie and you know it's itchy and uncomfortable and you feel like, oh, I'm making these compromises for the better good, so you better too. But when you realize, wait a minute, actually I should have never even done this because there is no greater good. I should not be compromising my sovereign right to happiness and health for any reason at all. Then, that's where the waking up happens. But like I said, we seem to be split, and we have been more and more starting to kind of wake up. But there's still a great group that for whatever reasons on these different levels, they are, choosing to continue to hold up that veil in whatever ways for certain ways and cling to them. And it's very interesting to see how it's playing out. And I think it's been a great learning experience for myself to see the variations of, how people react. And also for my children to witness some of it. And this is the other thing that I'll get into later, and I'm going to write an entire blog about homeschooling and about the sort of social isolation that I have put this protective barrier around my home life and my kids through these years. Really from the most sovereign and positively aspected intentions. to where it can be as free and feel open to change and open to respond and react and to flux and flow with situations, but to also be a steady protective boundary against things that are immoral, indecent, inverted, these distortions that are really, really prevalent out there that are very harmful. This learning of setting the boundaries and what to choose to expose my kids to and what to work to safeguard them from has been my biggest lesson over these past couple of years. And I'll definitely be talking a lot about that with some real world experience and giving some plain language scenarios and stuff in further podcasts and blogs to come. But I just wanted to sort of air out the space here, put up the first podcast here, Sunday, the 7th of January. I forgot to say that at the start, but it is episode 40. I thank you so much for joining and listening to me in this sort of brainstorming. Welcome to this running topic, parenting through the apocalypse. If you are a parent out there, I would love to hear your opinions, your perspectives. Feel free to shoot me an email or follow up over on my website, amariespeaks.com, on the contact page. Or if you are finding this on YouTube, you can leave a comment. Love that. If you'd like others to see your success or your struggles, put them up in the comments. That's great. And the final thing I will put out here is that if this does gain a bit of traction, and if I do see enough replies and some momentum, perhaps we could even create sort of a virtual parenting through the apocalypse support group kind of space, whether it's a forum to leave typed things, questions, or just to give these sort of scenarios. This happened to me and I dealt with it this way for people, or even maybe Zoom meetings where we could have the cameras on or off, and get together and really have conversations in live time about parenting roles and what we're dealing with and seeing. We could talk specifics about children or not. We don't have to have children on camera or anything to put actual children at risk for any kind of exposure or whatever. But maybe just as parents to feel some support together and be able to share likenesses and bounce ideas off each other. I would love an opportunity to create a space like that, to hold a space like that, and see what would happen through that. So if that interests you, feel free to leave a comment or a like, to send me a message on Telegram or an email directly, thirdeye.navigation@protonmail.com. It's always in the descriptions for spelling and all that jazz. Find it there. In the meantime, you could always find me on Telegram or YouTube at amariespeaks, or directly on my website, amariespeaks.com. Thank you so much for joining me here for this podcast, and I will catch you next time.